Today, what I wanted to talk about was something that a lot of novice property investors get wrong, and that is valuing the land that they are purchasing their investment property on. My name is Thomas O'Regan, and over the last 3.5 years, me and my wife have built an 11 property portfolio. And valuing the land is something that is super important. Like, a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to buy an apartment because apartments don't go up in value, houses only go up in value. It's just the complete wrong way of thinking about investing in property. So when it comes to investing in property, yes, generally the land only goes up in value, but you've got to understand what is the value of the land that you are purchasing. Because if you're just thinking, I want to buy a house because it's on bigger land, and land goes up in value and buildings go down in value, and you're not thinking about how much is the value of the land, then you're missing, you're not really comprehending what you're investing in, are you? Because the reality is that you can buy land in Australia, in farmland in the middle of nowhere, obviously, for as cheap as 50 cents a square meter. Think about that. So even if you own 100, like even if you own 1,000 square meters of land, it's still pretty much worthless. So what's the point in owning a large piece of land if it's got no value? There's no point in owning a large piece of land if it's got no value. And generally, the closer you get to the city, the higher the value the land is per square meter. The higher the value of the land is per square meter. So, for example, if you're buying an apartment really close to the CBD, the value of the land will be really high per square meter. So even though you're getting a very small portion of land, it's still worth far, far more than land if you were to buy it in some regional town in the middle of nowhere. So, for example, the maths you really should be doing when you're deciding if it's it's usually what in people's heads what they're thinking is, should I buy a house or an apartment? It's not that at all. Don't think, should I buy a house or an apartment? Just think, should how much is this property that I'm buying? How much is the land that it is sitting on worth? How much of the land am I buying, and how much is it worth in this area? For example, the reason I have a lot of apartments is because I've been able to buy a lot of apartments almost at the value of the land. And let me tell you, if you're able to buy properties that have rental income, that you're buying them at the value of the land, you're going to make a lot of money. And we have made a lot of money. But for example, if you're buying a house in the middle of nowhere, where the land component is large, but the value of the land is very small, then effectively what you're just paying for is you're paying for this building that is going to be worthless in a period of time, a long period of time, obviously, but the land component is also worthless. So you're not really gonna get anywhere. So this is what I would be looking into before I buy in any area. I would be going, okay, so how much, if I buy this apartment, say if I buy this apartment in a 50 apartment complex, which is not uncommon for me. I'm happy to buy an apartment in a 50 apartment complex if I know the actual value of the land is high. Say for example, if I buy in Melbourne in a like in close to a CBD area, and the value of the land is $5,000 per square meter, and I'm buying in an apartment of 50, I want to figure out what is the entire area of this apartment complex. It might be 4,000 square meters, and what is my portion of this 4,000 square meters? Well, if the apartment, if it's an apartment complex of 50, then maybe my portion of land might be 80 square meters. Okay, so if I times 80 square meters by 5,000, say, well, then then the land component that I own is going to be worth about $400,000. So if I'm able to buy that apartment for $400,000, effectively what I'm doing is I'm just buying the apartment at the land value. So That's the sort of things that I'll think through. And then I might compare it with, okay, so what would that look like if I was to buy a house in say Bendigo or Ballarat or some regional town like Dunkeld that only has a population of 500? What will the actual land component be of that house? Say it's 1,000 square meters. Okay, what if how much if the land value is 50 or $100 per 1,000 square meters? What will the value of the land be then? And what you'll find is, yes, you are buying a large portion of land, but the reality is the land value is worth far less, meaning that your potential for capital growth is far lower if you were to buy a house in an area where the land value is lower. So again, guys, just to clarify, it's not houses versus apartments, it's what is the value of the land that I'm purchasing, and that if you understand that, you are going to build a lot of wealth in property investing. If you guys have any more questions, anything you want me to go into, just feel free to comment, and I'll do my best to answer your questions in another video. And please, if you haven't already, just hit the subscribe button. See you guys. Bye.